Victoria's phone started ringing at 6:47 a.m., jarring her from sleep in her penthouse overlooking the city. She didn't recognize the number, nearly sent it to voicemail, but something made her answer. Ms. Ashford, this is Thomas Brennan from the Bellevue Tribune. I'm calling for comment on the incident at your restaurant last night. Victoria sat up, suddenly awake. Incident? What incident? The group you refused service to, the veterans. It's trending nationally, ma'am. Someone posted video footage on social media and... Video, Victoria's voice went sharp, from the security camera outside your restaurant. Clear audio, clear image. You telling those decorated veterans they should try establishments down by the highway. It's been shared 40,000 times in the last 6 hours. People are calling for boycotts, ma'am. I wanted to give you a chance to respond before we run the story. Victoria's hands went cold. Those people they were bikers. I didn't know. One of them is Sergeant Major Marcus Hayes, ma'am, Medal of Honor recipient. The woman you spoke to directly is Rachel Torres. She's been nominated for the Carnegie Medal for civilian heroism 3 times. Would you like to comment? The line went dead before Victoria could form words. She grabbed her laptop with shaking hands, opened Twitter, and felt her stomach drop into darkness. The video was everywhere. Crystal clear footage of her standing in her designer dress, dismissing those riders with barely concealed contempt. The comments below were brutal. Imagine being so blinded by prejudice you turn away actual heroes. These people risked their lives for others, and she couldn't even serve them dinner. This is everything wrong with privilege and class warfare in one video. The restaurant's phone started ringing. Then her personal cell. Then the landline. Victoria watched in growing horror as her email inbox exploded with messages, cancellations, angry letters, people demanding refunds on gift certificates. By 7:30 a.m., 2 news vans had parked outside her building. By 8 a.m., her restaurant's review page had been bombed with 1-star ratings. By 8:30 a.m., 3 major food critics had announced they were pulling their positive reviews pending investigation. Victoria dressed with trembling hands, her mind racing. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. She'd simply maintained standards. She'd protected her establishment's image. How had this spiraled so completely out of control? She arrived at the restaurant to find it surrounded. Not just news crews now, but protesters. People holding signs, heroes deserve respect, and service refusal, shun and discrimination, and Victoria Ashford, too good for those who serve. Her manager, David Kim, met her at the back entrance, his face grey with stress. Victoria, we need to talk. Every reservation for the next 2 weeks has cancelled. The staff is threatening to walk out. 3 of our suppliers have suspended delivery pending. This is insane. Victoria's voice cracked. I run a business. I have the right to refuse service. David's expression went flat. You refused service to veterans, Victoria, to people who've saved lives, and you did it on camera with enough contempt to make it clear it was about how they looked, not whether you had space. I didn't know who they were. That's exactly the problem. David pulled off his name tag, set it on the desk between them. I quit. I can't be part of this anymore. He left through the back door, leaving Victoria alone in her office, surrounded by the empire she'd built and now watched crumbling in real time. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Ms. Ashford, this is Marcus Hayes. I don't condone the harassment you're receiving, but I do think you should understand something. We didn't come to your restaurant to cause trouble. We came because we'd heard it was beautiful, that the food was exceptional, that it was a place worth experiencing. We came with respect, with money, with nothing but hope for a good meal after a long ride. What we got was a reminder that to some people, we'll never be good enough based on how we look. I hope you learn from this. M.H. Victoria stared at the message until her vision blurred. Outside, the crowd was growing, and somewhere across town, Marcus Hayes was meeting with Judge Chen to discuss what happened next. Hey everyone, quick question. What would you do if you witnessed something like this happening in front of you? Would you speak up or stay silent? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to tell us where you're watching from. Your city, your country. We love knowing where our community is tuning in from around the world. Judge Robert Chen sat across from Marcus Hayes in a small diner on the east side of town, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that came in thick ceramic mugs that had been refilled 1,000 times. It was 9:30 a.m., and the breakfast crowd had thinned to a handful of regulars who minded their own business. Marcus wrapped both hands around his mug, the warmth seeping into fingers still cold from the morning ride. He looked tired, not from lack of sleep, but from the weight of watching something spin out of control. "I didn't want this," Marcus said quietly. "Rachel posted that video out of frustration, but she took it down within an hour. By then," he shook his head, "by then it was everywhere. People are angry on our behalf, and I get it. But this woman is getting death threats now. That's not justice." Judge Chen nodded slowly. At 63, he carried himself with the measured dignity of someone who'd spent 40 years weighing evidence and consequences. His daughter, Emma, sat beside him, her hands wrapped around her own coffee mug. "Mr. Hayes," Emma said, her voice soft but firm. "2 years ago, I was trapped in my car on Highway 89. It was winter, snowing, and I'd slid into a ditch. My phone was dead, and I was starting to panic when I heard motorcycles. Your group, the Iron Oath Brotherhood, stopped. You pulled me out, gave me blankets, stayed with me until help arrived. You probably don't even remember." Marcus's expression shifted slightly. "Green Honda Civic. You had a broken wrist and were worried about being late to your nursing exam." Emma's eyes went bright. "You do remember." "We always remember the people we help," Marcus said simply. "It's why we ride. It's what the Brotherhood is about." Judge Chen leaned forward. "Mr. Hayes, I watched what happened last night. I was there in that restaurant when Victoria Ashford turned you away, and I've spent the last 12 hours wrestling with what to do about it." "There's nothing to do," Marcus said. "She runs a private business. Legally, she can refuse service as long as it's not based on protected class discrimination. We're bikers, not a protected class." "But you're also veterans," the judge countered. "And while that complicates things legally, it doesn't change the moral equation." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I've known Victoria Ashford for 5 years. She's been a fixture in this community, a successful businesswoman who came from nothing and built something impressive. But last night, I saw something in her that I can't ignore, a kind of casual cruelty born from prejudice and class superiority." "So what are you suggesting?" Marcus asked. "I'm suggesting that sometimes the law isn't enough. Sometimes a community needs to decide what it stands for." Judge Chen pulled out his phone, showed Marcus a list of names. "These are business owners, community leaders, and citizens who've been calling my office since dawn. They want to know if there's anything that can be done, not legally, morally, socially." Marcus studied the list, then looked up. "You're talking about a boycott." "I'm talking about consequences," the judge corrected. "Victoria Ashford treated you and your brothers and sisters with contempt based solely on appearance. She saw leather and motorcycles and decided you were beneath her. If this community lets that slide, what message does that send? It sends the message that we judge people by their character, not their clothes," Emma added quietly, which is exactly what she failed to do. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee like it held answers. Finally, he looked up. "Judge, I appreciate what you're saying, but I didn't serve 2 tours so I could come home and ruin someone's livelihood. Yeah, she was wrong. Yeah, it hurt. But destroying her restaurant won't change her heart." "Then what will?" Judge Chen asked. "I don't know," Marcus admitted, "but I do know that hate and anger just breed more of the same. If we really want change, we need to show her something different." Emma leaned forward. "Like what?" Marcus thought for a moment, then a small smile tugged at his weathered features. "Like why we ride in the first place. Like what the Brotherhood actually stands for." He pulled out his phone, started typing. Give me 24 hours. I've got an idea, but I need to make some calls first. Judge Chen raised an eyebrow. Mr. Hayes, with all due respect, the court of public opinion has already convicted Victoria Ashford. Her restaurant is finished whether we do anything or not. Maybe, Marcus said, standing, or maybe there's a third option nobody's considered yet. He left cash on the table for the coffee, nodded to them both, and walked out into the cold November morning. Emma watched him go, then turned to her father. What do you think he's planning? Judge Chen shook his head slowly. I don't know, but something tells me we're about to learn what real honor looks like. Across town, Victoria Ashford sat in her empty restaurant, scrolling through the endless stream of hate messages, watching her life's work collapse around her. Her phone rang, her landlord, calling about the lease. Then her insurance company. Then her lawyer, asking if she'd considered bankruptcy protection. She didn't answer any of them. Instead, she stared at Marcus Hayes's text message, reading it over and over, trying to understand why a man she'd treated with such contempt would tell her he didn't condone the harassment she was receiving. It didn't make sense. Nothing made sense anymore. Outside, the protesters were still there, their signs visible through the window. Inside, the silence was deafening, the kind of silence that comes when everything you've built stands on the edge of ruin, and you're forced to confront exactly how you got there. Victoria closed her eyes, and for the first time in 20 years, she let herself cry. The parking lot of Hank's Roadhouse, a biker bar on the outskirts of Bellevue, was packed with motorcycles by 7 p.m. that evening. Word had spread through the veteran riding community faster than wildfire. The Iron Oath Brotherhood had put out the call, and riders from 6 different chapters across 3 states had answered. Inside, the air smelled of leather, motor oil, and the kind of coffee that could wake the dead. Marcus stood at the front of the room, Rachel Torres beside him, facing nearly 80 riders who'd dropped everything to be there. These weren't weekend warriors or middle-aged dentists playing rebel on Sundays. These were men and women who'd served, who'd bled, who'd come home changed and found brotherhood in the road and the roar of engines. Tommy, Crossfire Morrison, a former Marine with burn scars covering half his face, spoke first. Marcus, brother, we've all seen the video. That woman disrespected the patch, disrespected what we stand for. We ride down there together, make our presence known, show her what it means to cross the brotherhood. No. Marcus's voice cut through the rumble of agreement. That's not who we are. The room went quiet. I know you're angry, Marcus continued, his gaze moving across the faces before him. Hell, I'm angry. But we don't fight prejudice with intimidation. We don't answer disrespect with threats. That's not what the Iron Oath stands for. A woman near the back, Sarah Valkyrie Chen, a former army medic, stood up. Then what do we do, Mark? Let it slide? Let people think they can treat us like trash because we ride? No, Marcus said. We show them what we're actually about. We remind them, and her, why we wear this patch in the first place. He turned to the wall behind him, where someone had projected local news coverage. The headline read, Bellevue restaurant owner faces backlash after refusing service to veterans. Below that, smaller stories. Woman's business collapsing after viral video and community divided over biker incident. Victoria Ashford is being crucified in the court of public opinion, Marcus said. Her business is dying. She's getting death threats. And yeah, she brought this on herself, but here's the question. Do we want revenge, or do we want to actually change something? What's the difference? Tommy asked. Revenge feels good for about 5 minutes, Rachel spoke up. Change lasts forever. Marcus nodded. Here's what I'm proposing. Tomorrow morning we ride to her restaurant. All of us. We show up in our vests, on our bikes, with our colors showing, and we ask her to serve us breakfast. The room erupted in confusion and protest. Mark, that's crazy. She'll refuse again. What's the point? Marcus raised his hand and slowly the noise died down. If she refuses, we leave peacefully and nothing changes. But if she agrees, If she actually serves us, then we do something nobody expects." "What?" Sarah asked. "We show her respect. We show her kindness. We leave a tip so generous she can pay her staff for a week. And we let the cameras that'll definitely be there capture the whole thing." Understanding slowly dawned across the room. "You want to show her who we really are," Rachel said quietly. "I want to show everyone who we really are," Marcus corrected. "The world thinks bikers are thugs. Victoria Ashford thinks we're beneath her. The news thinks this is a story about discrimination and revenge. But what if we turn it into a story about grace, about second chances, about what it means to actually live by a code of honor?" Tommy crossed his arms, his scarred face thoughtful. "And if she refuses, if she doubles down on the disrespect, then we walk away with our heads high, knowing we offered something better. But my gut tells me she won't refuse. Because right now she's desperate. Her business is dying, and we might be the only lifeline she's got." "That's a hell of a gamble," Sarah said. "Maybe," Marcus agreed. "But I didn't come home from 2 wars to become the same kind of person who judges others without knowing them. We're better than that. We have to be." A older rider near the front, Frank "Ghost" Rodriguez, a Vietnam vet with silver hair pulled back in a ponytail, stood slowly. "I was refused service at a diner in Texas in 1973. Just got home from Nam, still in uniform, and the owner told me to leave, said he didn't serve baby killers." His voice went rough. 40 years later, that memory still burns. "And you know what I wish? I wish someone had shown me grace after I got home. I wish someone had looked past the uniform and seen the scared kid underneath." He looked at Marcus. "If you're saying we can be that grace for someone else, even someone who doesn't deserve it, then I'm in." Slowly, around the room, heads began to nodle. Tommy uncrossed his arms. "All right, brother. We ride at dawn. But if she spits in our faces again, I'm not making any promises about staying calm." "Fair enough," Marcus said. The meeting broke up into smaller conversations, riders making plans, coordinating logistics. Rachel pulled Marcus aside. "You really think this'll work?" she asked. "Honestly, I have no idea, but I know that anger and revenge just perpetuate the cycle. Somebody has to be willing to break it. And if she breaks your heart again tomorrow," Marcus smiled sadly, "then at least we'll know we tried." "We're filming this from Bellevue, Washington, where the temperature just dropped to 34 degrees and morning frost is already settling on the chrome. It's 9:47 p.m. local time, and somewhere across town, Victoria Ashford has no idea what's coming. Stay with us, because tomorrow morning will change everything." Victoria hadn't slept. She sat in her darkened restaurant at 5:30 a.m., surrounded by empty tables and the ghost of what her life used to be. The protesters had finally left around midnight, but the damage was done. Her bank had called yesterday afternoon. 3 major investors had pulled funding. Her head chef had quit. 2 servers had walked out mid-shift. The restaurant that had taken 15 years to build was collapsing in less than 48 hours. Her phone buzzed with another message from her lawyer. "Victoria, we need to discuss bankruptcy options. Call me." She didn't call. Instead, she walked through the empty dining room, running her fingers across the tables she'd selected herself, the chairs she'd imported from Italy, the artwork she'd commissioned from local artists. Every detail had been chosen with obsessive care. Every element designed to create the kind of place she'd dreamed about when she was a girl growing up in a trailer park, eating government cheese and wearing second-hand clothes. She'd sworn she'd never be poor again, never be looked down on again, never be dismissed as less than because of where she came from. And now, in trying to protect that dream, she'd become exactly the kind of person who used to make her feel small. The irony was devastating. At 6:15 a.m., she heard the rumble. At first she thought it was thunder, some early morning storm rolling through. But the sound didn't fade. It grew, a deep, mechanical thunder that made the windows vibrate in their frames. Victoria walked to the front door, unlocked it, stepped outside into the November cold, and stopped breathing. The street was filled with motorcycles, not 12 this time. Dozens, maybe 70, maybe 80, stretching down the block in both directions. Chrome gleamed under the streetlights. Exhaust pipes rumbled like contained thunder, and every rider wore the same leather vest, the same patch, the Iron Oath Brotherhood. They weren't moving. They were just there, waiting. Marcus Hayes dismounted from the lead bike, pulled off his helmet, and walked toward her. Behind him, the other riders stayed mounted, engines idling, a wall of leather and chrome and quiet power. "Miss Ashford," Marcus said, his voice calm and measured, "we'd like to request breakfast service for 83 people, if you're willing." Victoria's throat went dry. I don't have staff. My chef quit. We'll help cook," Rachel Torres said, appearing beside Marcus. "We've got 3 former line cooks in the group, plus our army field chef who can make miracles out of MREs. We'll do the work. We just need you to let us in." Victoria looked at the assembled riders, then back at Marcus. "Why? After what I did, why would you—" "Because you're going to lose everything," Marcus said simply. "And while you maybe deserve consequences for how you treated us, I don't think you deserve to have your life destroyed. Also," he paused, "I was where you are once. Different circumstances, but same desperation, and someone gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve it. Maybe it's time I paid that forward." Victoria felt something crack inside her chest. "The news crews will be back. They're probably already on their way. If you come in here, they'll film it, Let them," Marcus said. "Let them film veterans being treated with respect. Let them film a woman who made a mistake getting a second chance. Let them film what grace actually looks like." Behind him, Tommy Morrison called out, "Plus, we're hungry as hell, ma'am. Been riding since 4 a.m. A ripple of laughter ran through the group. Victoria looked at Marcus, at the patience in his weathered face, at the absence of anger or judgment. She looked at Rachel, at the scar on her jaw that spoke of pain survived. She looked at the assembled riders, men and women who'd served, who'd saved lives, who she'd dismissed without a second thought, and she made a choice. "Okay," she whispered. Then, louder, "Okay, come in." Indeed, the news vans arrived 18 minutes later, cameras rolling as the Iron Oath Brotherhood filed into Ashford's, not as protesters, but as customers. Victoria stood at the host stand, hands shaking, as she seated them in groups, directing them to tables she'd thought would stay empty forever. The former army field chef, a man named Carlos "Cookie" Hernandez, took over her kitchen with efficient grace, directing the 3 former line cooks like a general commanding troops. Rachel helped set tables. Sarah Chen worked the coffee station. Tommy Morrison, improbably, turned out to be exceptional at managing the chaos. And Victoria, proud, defensive Victoria, who'd spent 15 years building walls around herself, found herself working alongside them, taking orders, serving coffee, slowly understanding exactly what she'd almost destroyed. The cameras outside captured all of it. By 8:30 a.m., the smell of bacon, eggs, and fresh brewed coffee filled the restaurant. Conversations flowed around tables, riders sharing stories, laughing, treating her establishment with the respect she'd denied them. Judge Chen arrived at 9 a.m. with his daughter Emma. They took a seat at the counter, and Victoria approached with trembling hands. "Judge, just coffee, Victoria," he said gently, "and maybe we talk after breakfast." She poured his coffee, hands steadier now, and returned to the kitchen where Carlos was teaching her how to properly flip an omelette. "The trick," he said, demonstrating with casual expertise, "is confidence. You hesitate, it falls apart. You commit, it works every time." Victoria realized he wasn't just talking about eggs. At 10:45 a.m., as the last plates were being cleared, Marcus stood and addressed the room. "Brothers and sisters, I want to thank Ms. Ashford for her hospitality this morning. She took a risk letting us in, and she showed us that people can change, can grow, can be better than their worst moment." He turned to Victoria. "Ma'am, we'd like to settle our bill." Victoria shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No charge. Please, after everything—" "We insist," Rachel said and handed her an envelope. Victoria opened it with shaking hands. Inside was $12,000 in cash, plus individual tips for each table that totaled another $3,000. That's too much. That's gratitude," Marcus said. "For second chances. For grace. For showing us that even people who seem rigid and judgmental can soften if given the opportunity." Victoria couldn't speak. She just stood there, holding that envelope, surrounded by people she'd dismissed as beneath her, understanding finally what she'd been too blind to see before, that dignity had nothing to do with money or social status or designer clothes, and everything to do with how you treated others when they couldn't benefit you. The riders filed out slowly, thanking her individually, some leaving business cards, others just nodding with quiet respect. Marcus was the last to leave. At the door, he turned back. "Ms. Ashford, Victoria, what you did 2 nights ago was wrong. But what you did this morning took real courage. The question now is, what comes next? Do you go back to judging people by appearances, or do you remember what it felt like to be on the other side of grace?" "I'll remember," Victoria whispered. "I promise." Marcus nodded once, then walked out into the November sunlight, mounted his bike, and led his brotherhood away into the morning. The news crews captured every moment, and by noon, the story had changed completely. The viral video that destroyed Victoria's reputation was replaced by something unexpected: footage of 83 bikers treating her restaurant with respect, of Victoria working alongside them with tears on her face, of Marcus Hayes' speech about second chances and grace. The new narrative spread just as fast as the old one had, but with a different message. Woman who refused veterans gets second chance and takes it. By that evening, Victoria's phone was ringing again. But this time, the calls weren't cancellations. They were people wanting reservations, wanting to support a business that had been willing to change. Food critics who'd pulled their reviews called back, asking for new opportunities to visit. Her landlord called to say he was suspending the lease review. Victoria sat in her office, overwhelmed by the sudden reversal, when Judge Chen knocked on her open door. "May I come in?" he asked. She nodded, unable to speak. The judge took the seat across from her desk, his expression thoughtful. "Victoria, I've been a judge for 40 years. I've seen a lot of people face consequences for their actions, and I've learned that there are 2 types of people: those who double down on their mistakes and those who actually learn from them. The question is, which one are you?" "I don't know," Victoria admitted, her voice raw. "I spent so long trying to prove I wasn't the poor girl from the trailer park anymore. I built this place to show everyone, maybe to show myself, that I'd made it, that I was someone. And somewhere along the way, I started thinking that meant I was better than other people." "That's honest," the judge said. "What changed?" Victoria thought about Marcus's patient eyes, about Rachel's scar, about Carlos teaching her to flip omelets with confidence. They didn't have to help me. They could have let me drown. Hell, they should have let me drown after how I treated them. But they showed up anyway, not because I deserved it, but because that's who they are. She looked up at the judge. "I want to be that kind of person. The kind who shows up for others, not the kind who judges them based on assumptions." Judge Chen leaned back, studying her. "Actions speak louder than intentions, Victoria. So here's my question. What are you going to do with this second chance?" Victoria was quiet for a long moment, then opened her laptop. "I've been thinking about that. And I have an idea." She turned the screen toward him. On it was a draft website for a new initiative, the Open Table Project. "I want to partner with veteran organizations," she explained. "Once a month, this restaurant hosts a free dinner for veterans and their families. No reservations needed, no dress code, just good food and respect." The judge read through the proposal, his eyebrows rising. "This will cost you money. Significant money. I know. But Marcus gave me $15,000 this morning, way more than the meals cost. I'm using that to start a fund, and I'm reaching out to other business owners to contribute. I'm calling it the Second Chances Fund, for people who made mistakes but are willing to do better. That's ambitious, Judge Chen said. It's necessary, Victoria corrected. I can't undo what I did, but I can try to make sure other people don't repeat my mistakes. And I can honor the people who showed me grace by extending that same grace to others. The judge stood, extended his hand. Then you have my support, and I suspect you'll have the community's support too. They shook hands, and he left her to her planning. But not everyone was ready to forgive. That night, Victoria received an email from Constance Hartwell, president of the Bellevue Elite Business Association, the same social circle Victoria had fought so hard to join. Victoria, in light of recent events and the negative publicity surrounding your establishment, the association has voted to revoke your membership. We simply cannot be associated with businesses that display such poor judgment and create public controversies. We wish you well in your future endeavors. Constance. Victoria read the message twice, waiting for the old pain to hit, the sting of rejection, the fury of being excluded from the very circles she'd worked so hard to enter. But it didn't come. Instead, she felt something unexpected: relief. She didn't need their approval anymore. She'd spent 15 years chasing validation from people who measured worth in designer labels and social status. And in one morning, a group of bikers had shown her what real character looked like. She deleted the email without responding. Then she opened a new message and began typing. Marcus, it's Victoria Ashford. I wanted to thank you again for this morning. You and your brotherhood didn't just save my business. You saved me from becoming someone I don't want to be. I'd like to discuss the Open Table project with you. Would you be willing to meet? Victoria. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. The response came 5 minutes later. Victoria, we'd be honored to help. And just so you know, we never doubted you'd do the right thing. That's why we showed up. Sometimes people just need to be reminded who they really are, underneath all the armor. See you tomorrow. Marcus. Victoria closed her laptop and looked around her office. At the expensive artwork, the designer furniture, the trappings of success she'd accumulated like armor against the poverty of her past. And she realized that none of it mattered as much as what had happened that morning. Broken people showing grace to someone who didn't deserve it, and in doing so, showing her a path towards something better. The next morning, she began taking down the velvet ropes at the entrance. The dress code requirement came down from the website. The reservations required policy was revised to walk-ins welcome. And in the window, she placed a new sign, hand-lettered and simple, all are welcome here, especially those who've served. The transformation wasn't complete. It would take time, work, and constant vigilance against her old instincts. But it was a start. And sometimes Victoria was learning a start is all you need. 3 weeks later, on a cold December evening, Ashford's hosted its first open-table dinner for veterans. Victoria had coordinated with local VA offices, recruited new staff from veteran employment programs, and transformed her restaurant into something warmer, more welcoming. The lighting was softer now. The tables accommodated wheelchairs and service dogs. The menu featured comfort food alongside haute cuisine, because Marcus had gently suggested that not everyone wanted quail eggs and truffle oil. By 6 p.m., the restaurant was packed. Veterans from World War II to Afghanistan filled the tables, some in uniform, some in casual clothes, some in leather vests. Families came too, spouses, children, grandchildren. The air hummed with conversation and laughter. Victoria moved through the room, greeting people personally, listening to their stories. A World War II Navy veteran told her about surviving Pearl Harbor. A Vietnam vet shared photos of his grandchildren. A young Marine, recently back from deployment, had quietly in the corner, and Victoria made sure someone sat with him so he wouldn't be alone. Marcus arrived with the Brotherhood around 7 p.m. "Thank you for coming," Victoria said at the door. "We wouldn't miss this," Rachel replied. "What you're building here matters." Judge Chen and Emma arrived shortly after, along with community members who wanted to support the event. The local news sent a camera crew, but this time Victoria welcomed them. This time, the story was about transformation. At 8:30 p.m., Victoria stood at the front of the room and tapped a glass for attention. "3 weeks ago, I made a terrible mistake," she began, voice steady. "I judged people based on how they looked instead of who they were. Marcus Hayes and the Iron Oath Brotherhood could have let me face the consequences alone. Instead, they showed me grace I didn't deserve." She looked around at the assembled veterans. "This restaurant will host an open-table dinner once a month for anyone who's served. No charge, no reservations needed. Just good food, respect, and gratitude." Applause filled the room, genuine and sustained. Marcus stood. "Victoria, what you've created isn't just a free meal. It's recognition, it's respect. It's a reminder that service matters and that communities can change when individuals are willing to grow." The dinner continued until nearly midnight. Veterans shared stories, sang old military songs, embraced old friends. Children ran between tables. Service dogs sprawled contentedly under chairs. As the last guests were leaving, Frank Ghost Rodriguez approached her. "Ms. Ashford, I told Marcus about being refused service when I got home from Vietnam 50 years ago. Tonight, you helped heal something I didn't even know was still broken. Thank you." He hugged her, brief and awkward, but meaning more than any 5-star review ever had. After everyone left, Victoria sat alone in the empty restaurant. Her phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "You did good tonight, Victoria. Real change starts with one person willing to admit they were wrong and do better. You're that person. Proud to call you a friend now. MH." Victoria smiled through tears and typed back, "Thank you for showing me what honor actually looks like. See you next month. V." She locked up around 1 a.m., stepping into December cold. Looking up at her restaurant's sign and the new banner that read, "Home of the Open Table, Veterans Welcome Always," she felt something she hadn't felt in 15 years. Peace. The kind that comes from finally understanding that the person you need to prove yourself to is looking back at you in the mirror. If this story moved you, hit that like button and let us know in the comments what you think about second chances and grace. Have you ever misjudged someone based on appearance? Have you ever been the one misjudged? Share your stories below. This community is built on respect and understanding, and we want to hear from you. 6 months later, on a warm June evening in 2025, Victoria stood in the parking lot behind Ashford's, watching a construction crew finish an expansion that would add 30 more seats plus a private room for veteran support group meetings and counseling sessions. Marcus pulled up on his motorcycle. "Looking good," he said, surveying the work. "The Second Chances Fund raised $340,000 last quarter," Victoria told him, pulling up numbers on her phone. "We've helped 12 other businesses implement similar programs, and we've served over 2,000 veterans in 6 months." Marcus studied her thoughtfully. "You've served more people in 6 months of this program than you did in 15 years of running an exclusive restaurant." "I know," Victoria admitted. "And it's better, more meaningful. This actually matters." A car pulled into the lot. Judge Chen, Emma, and a middle-aged man Victoria didn't recognize. "Victoria Marcus," the judge called. "This is Colonel James Mitchell, retired Army. He's the new director of the state's Department of Veterans Affairs." The colonel shook their hands. "Ms. Ashford, I've been following your Open Table project. What you've built is remarkable. I want to discuss making this a statewide model. 30 cities that could benefit from similar programs. We're calling it the Open Table Initiative, and we'd like you as training consultant." Victoria's eyes widened. "Statewide? You're more qualified than anyone," Emma said. "You've lived it. You made mistakes, owned them, and built something better. That's exactly the leadership this needs." "I'd be honored," Victoria managed, tears threatening. They spent an hour discussing logistics and implementation. As the meeting wrapped up, Rachel, Tommy and Sarah arrived, regular fixtures now at veteran events. "Going statewide?" Rachel said, hugging Victoria. "That's amazing." "6 months ago, you were trending for all the wrong reasons," Tommy grinned. "Now you're changing the whole state." "6 months ago, I was a completely different person," Victoria said softly. "Or maybe the same person, just buried under years of fear." Marcus put a hand on her shoulder. "You did the work. You faced what you'd done wrong and chose to be better. That takes real courage." As sunset painted the sky orange and purple, more Brotherhood members arrived. Someone started a small grill, and the gathering turned into an impromptu celebration. Victoria stood back, watching, still amazed this was her life now. The exclusive reservations were gone. The velvet ropes were gone. The need to prove herself through exclusivity was gone. In their place, genuine community, real connection, and deep satisfaction from serving something larger than yourself. Judge Chen appeared beside her with 2 beers. "You know, I wasn't sure you'd listen that morning after the incident." "I almost didn't," Victoria admitted, "but something Marcus said stuck with me. If we really want change, we need to show something different." I realized he wasn't just talking about his brotherhood. He was talking about me. "And now you're showing something different to others," the judge said. Marcus joined them, beer in hand. "You know what the best part is? You didn't just change your restaurant, you changed yourself. And now you're helping others do the same. That's real legacy, the kind that ripples outward forever." Victoria looked around at veterans who'd become friends, community members who'd become partners, all gathered in recognition of something simple. We're all better when we stop judging and start serving. 6 months ago, I thought I'd lost everything, she said quietly. My reputation, my business, my social standing, I was terrified. "And now?" Rachel asked. "Now I realize I didn't lose everything. I lost all the wrong things and gained something infinitely more valuable. Purpose." Tommy raised his beer. "To purpose, and to stubborn women who actually listen when bikers tell them they're wrong." Laughter rippled through the group. "To second chances," Victoria said, raising her own beer, "and to the people brave enough to give them." "To second chances," the group echoed. As evening deepened into night, stars emerging overhead, Victoria understood something fundamental. The restaurant she'd built on exclusivity had only ever been a building. But this community of broken people helping each other heal, this was something that would last forever. The Iron Oath Brotherhood had shown her what true honor looked like. Judge Chen had shown her the cost of prejudice, and she had chosen to learn, to grow, to become someone she could finally be proud of. Marcus stood beside her as the others mingled. "You did good, Victoria." "We did good," she corrected. "Nobody ever does this alone." "That's the secret about strength," Marcus replied. "It's not about being independent. It's about being brave enough to accept help and wise enough to offer it to others." The Open Table project would continue growing. More restaurants would join. More veterans would be served. More communities would learn that judgment based on appearance was a poverty everyone could afford to leave behind. And it had started with one woman willing to face her worst mistake and choose to be better. Victoria slipped inside her restaurant one last time, walking through the dining room that had once represented everything she thought she wanted. In the window, the sign still hung, "All are welcome here, especially those who've served." She traced the letters with her fingers, then turned off the lights. Tomorrow, the restaurant would open again. Veterans would come, and so would paying customers. The Open Table would host another dinner. And Victoria would be there, serving food and gratitude in equal measure, living proof that redemption isn't just possible, it's the most powerful transformation of all. Behind her, the Brotherhood was still celebrating. Ahead of her, a future built on grace instead of judgment, and inside her finally, after 15 years of striving, peace. Thank you for watching this story all the way to the end. If it moved you, inspired you, or made you think differently about second chances and grace, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss another story. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. We read every single one. And remember, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Choose kindness, choose grace, choose to see the person behind the appearance. Until next time, ride safe and stay honorable. We'll see you in the next story.